Hello friends, I welcome you all in this session. Let me tell you what we did in previous session. We did solve a question using AHP and one question by TOPSIS method. So in AHP we calculated weight of all those 4 criteria, and we also calculated weights of 4 projects based on all those 4 criteria. Now you need not do all those calculations manually. There are some calculators available which are freely available. You can use those AHP calculators. I will show you how to use those AHP calculators. So on Google you just type AHP calculator, right. Once you type AHP calculator, you will get these options. Then go at this point, AHP calculation software by CGI, right. Just click on that line. After that you just write here what is the size of the matrix. So you can have 3 by 3, 4 by 4 or whatever it is, right. So let us say the size of matrix is 4 by 4, right. So once you write size of the matrix, then submit this, right. Now you have got input matrix, right. So there are 4 criteria. So criteria 1 to criterion 1 to criterion 1, the relative importance is 1, right. Similarly 2 to 2 1, 3 to 3 1 and 4 to 4 1. So let's go for data entry, right. So criteria 1 to criterion 1 to criterion 2, right. Let us say this is 9 or let us say 9. So criterion 2 is 9 times important than criterion 1, right. Similarly 3 and 1. So criterion 3 is 1 by 9 time important than criterion 1, then criterion 1 and criterion 4, right. So this is 5. So you can choose any these values, right. Of course you have to ensure that there is a consistency is maintained. Consistency means what? Let us say if you are saying that delivery is more important than price is more important than let us say service, then you cannot say that service is less important than quality, right. So that consistency has to be maintained. Similarly criterion 2 to criterion 3, right. Let us say let it be 4, right. I am taking this data arbitrarily, right. Criterion 1 to criterion 4, let us say 2, right. Criterion 3 to criterion 4, let us say 7, right, and you just submit. You will get these weights calculated by this particular calculator. Yeah, so these are different weights, right. So this 0.31, 0.23, 0.41 and 0.32. So which is the most important criterion here out of 4 criteria? We will say this is the third one, right, because its weight is highest, right. So the most important, and then you have got second number 0.31, right, then 0.23 and finally 4th criterion, right. So this is how you can solve any AHP matrix using AHP calculator, right. Let us now move on to the next example by TOPSIS, right. So we have solved one example. This is an example. Let us say there are 4 different types of aircrafts, A1 to A4, and there are different criteria, and you have to select one aircraft out of these 4, right. So you have got speed, you have got different speeds of all these aircrafts, different range, different payload capacity, different cost, different reliability and different maneuverability, right. So how many men would be there, are the men carrying capacity of the aircrafts, right. So let us say this aircraft can carry 9 people and so on, right. Similarly you have got other values in this matrix, right. So you can solve this question similar to what we have solved, right. So I will quickly go through this. So you have got 4 by 6 matrix, 4 alternatives and 6 criteria. You just get the initial matrix, calculate normalized matrix, right. Then find out weighted normalized matrix. So multiply normalized matrix with weights, right. Then you need to find out ideal and negative ideal solution. So let us say this is your ideal solution, right, and this is your negative ideal solution, right. Then what you need to calculate separation measures for ideal solution as well as for negative ideal solution, right. So this is for ideal solution and this is for negative ideal solution, right. Then finally calculate the relative closeness value, right. So as far as this particular question is concerned, the highest the closeness value is 0.64. So you would be selecting which aircraft? A1 aircraft, right. Then go for A3 aircraft, then A4 and then finally A2, right. So this is the ranking of these aircrafts, right. So you would be going for A1, A3, A4 and A2, right. Now let us start our next topic, which is on market demand analysis. This is quite an important topic in project management, because you need to identify a particular project, and before identifying a particular project you need to analyze demand of a particular product very carefully. So how to proceed for market and demand analysis? So first of all, what you should be doing, there is something called situational analysis. Analyze situation, then go for collection of secondary data. Once you are done with secondary data, go for market survey. This is known as primary data collection method. Then what are the characteristics of market, and then go for demand forecasting, right. And then once you have forecasted demand of a particular project or a particular product, you go for market planning, right. So these are a couple of things which we would look at in detail in market and demand analysis. So the first is situational analysis. What is situational analysis? Let us say if I want to start any business, right. So what I will do initially, I will try to find out who are my customers, who are my competitors, who are middlemen involved in that business. So I will try to find out relationship between a feeling of relationship between product and its market, right. So I will try to gather some insights about the business in the beginning, right. So I would like to know what are the preferences of the customers, what strategies my competitors are using, what kind of practices middlemen are using. I should see, do I have middlemen in that business or not first, right. After that I should see what are their requirements. So in the beginning what you are trying to do, you are trying to find out what are possible stakeholders, right, and you need to identify their requirements, right. So this is situational analysis. Once you are done with situational analysis, what you should do, you should go for collection of secondary information. Now secondary information is basically a set of information wherein someone else has done some work and you are trying to get some information from that work, right. So, you are not collecting data from your own initially, right. So, you are taking a reference from different other works which your predecessors have done, right. So, this could be one of the starting point of your market and demand analysis. So, you try to find out who are the people who have done similar type of work in past, right. So, it indicates what is known and often provide leads and cues for gathering primary information, because the next step after secondary information is primary information. So, you will get an idea from secondary information what kind of primary information you would be requiring for your product or project. So, this is second point in market and demand analysis. The first one was situational analysis, and the next one is, okay, before going for primary type of information collection, let us look at what are couple of sources of secondary data, because your primary information collection process depends on what sources you have used for collecting secondary data information. So, what could be the possible sources? Can you name couple of things? So, there are multiple sources available. So, let's say if you want to do any business, right. So, you will always be having the competitors. You can refer what kind of businesses they are doing, who are their customers, who are their competitors, who are bankers, who are insurers, who are logistics service providers, and so on, right. So, that could be one source. Then you can have Google is also there, right. It is always there. Google Guru will help you in knowing what are different sources of secondary data. Then you have got different books, you have got different journals. You can read research papers from good journals. You can have several government agencies also which come up with several data. Let us say you have got Ministry of Finance data, RBI data, different, let us say State Bank of India data, you have got World Bank data, you have got IMF data, and there are several other sources also. So, you need to try to find out information from those sources first, and then move towards data collection towards then go for primary data collection if needed, right. It is not necessary that you would always be going for primary data collection. If you think that secondary sources of data are sufficient enough, then you need not go for primary data collection, right. So, whenever you go for secondary sources, you should look at couple of things. You should not blindly get data from secondary sources, right. You need to analyze those sources very carefully. So, you need to evaluate secondary information very carefully, and there are several evaluation criteria. So, first of all, what you should do, you should look at who collected that data which you are referring to, right. What was the response rate, who were the respondents, how data were analyzed by that time, what was the sampling technique, was it a random sampling or let us say some non-probabilistic sampling, like let us say convenient sampling, right. What was the sample size, why was that particular sample size, who designed questionnaire, how many questions were there in that questionnaire, who did the field work, right, who collected data, and so on. So, you need to look at specification and methodology very carefully before getting any data from secondary source, right. You should also look at the error and accuracy of that particular source. So, if there are some errors, then what is the level of that error? Is that level of error acceptable to you? If yes, take it, otherwise do not take it, right. So, you can have issues like, let us say, research design, whether it was exploratory research design or conclusive research design, and let us say the next point can be currency, right. This is the next criterion, right. So, how updated that data is, right. So, the time lag between now and when that data was collected, when that data was analyzed. So, that time lag is very important. You should not collect too old data, right. Of course, you can have you should have recent data, and if possible try to have a time series type of data, right, so that you can find out trend in that data set, right. So, look at this currency, right, how updated or how old the data set is, right. Then you should also look at objective. What was the objective of the research, or the purpose of data collection that time? Is, if the objective of data collection that time and objective of your study is same, then it is good to get secondary data, otherwise not, right. You should also look at nature of secondary data. For example, important key variables, right, key questions, and how many questions were there in that particular research. What was the unit of measurement, whether data were collected on, let us say nominal scale, or let us say ordinal scale, or some other scale, right. And what kind of the data analysis tools used by earlier researchers. Then you should also look at dependability. Whatever source you are referring to, it should be credible, it should be a reputed one, and it should be trustworthy. So, do not blindly go for secondary sources, evaluate those sources carefully on all these criteria, and then go for taking data from those sources, right. Now, you need to, of course, you have evaluated secondary data, but sometimes they are not accurate, sometimes they are not relevant, and sometimes they are not reliable. So, what you need to do is you need to go for primary information, right. So, if secondary sources are good enough, then there is no need, but if you think that some more data need to be collected, then go for primary data collection, right, and that is known as market survey, right. As I said, if your secondary sources do not provide all the information which you are seeking, then go for market survey or primary data collection. Sometimes you need to go for market survey because you want to supplement whatever work the earlier people have done, right. So, you will have some confidence, right. It would be a kind of validation of the previous work. So, what kind of information generally you sought in market survey? So, most of the things you have already done in secondary survey, right. But if something is missing and if you think that something is not updated, something is not reliable, then you can go for market survey, right. So, what are the things we would be looking in this? You can look at what would be the total demand of the product, right. Who would be the customers, what would be their social economic background, what are the needs which have not been fulfilled. So you just identify those needs and try to fulfill them. What would be the motives for buying your product by the customers, right? So you should look at all these things in primary data collection process, right? So let us look at couple of steps in primary data collection process or market survey. So first of all, you need to define target population. It's not population, right? Population is everything, all the elements are covered in population, but in target population is a part of population, right? So let us say if I want to know what would be the demand of a razor blade, right, for shaving, right. So I won't say that all the men who live in India is my target population. The target population would be let us say those people who go for shaving, right. So that would be the target population, and target population is to be defined in terms of elements, in terms of sampling unit, in terms of extent, to what extent your target population is, and the time, right. So target population is very important, right. It's not population, right. So identify your target population, then select appropriate sampling method and appropriate sample size, develop the questionnaire, collect data, and if the sample size is small you can collect data, otherwise you will have to employ field workers. So those field workers would be collecting data on your behalf, right. Obtain information which you want to from questionnaire, scrutinize data once you have done the data collection process, because there would be several missing data also, right, and you need to analyze those missing data very carefully, right, because if missing data is too large, then it would give you wrong results at the end of the day, right. So how you are looking at missing data, right, and then finally you need to analyze and come up with findings, right. So these are couple of steps in simple survey. The next step is characterization of market. So now you are done with secondary data, you are done with primary data. Now what? Now once you are done with these two things, now you just come up with that this is the effective demand of my product, right, which you are going to launch, right. And once you have got the aggregate demand, you need to break it down. For example, let us say Maruti has to produce 12 lakh cars in 2018, right. So they can break up that demand into different models, right. So let us say model A would be having this much demand, model B would be having this much demand, and so on, right. What would be the price of the product? Would it be same as the price of the competitors, or less than, or more than that, right. So what would be the methods of distribution, what would be your supply chain, how you would promote your product. So you need to look at all marketing issues here, and you need to closely look at the government policies which would be affecting your business, right. So this is known as characterization of the market, right. So with this let me summarize what we have done in this session. We will again go through some of the important points which we have seen in this lecture, right. So what we have done here is I have shown you how to use AHP calculator. This AHP calculator is available on Google. You just type AHP calculator, you will get AHP calculator. Then first of all what you are supposed to do, you just decide how many rows and columns are there, right. So, initially it would be a square matrix, right. So, write down the size of your matrix. Once you submit, you click the submit button, you will have a 4 by 4 matrix or 3 by 3 matrix or whatever it is, right. So, go for data entry, and data entry, as I said, it would be on since you have collected data on 9-point SATI scale. So, you would be doing data entry. Keep in mind that let us say if you are collecting data on first pair, let us say price and delivery, right, and there are 50 experts and each of those have given different value on 9-point SATI scale, right. So, how to select one particular value in that particular cell, that is again you have to be very careful, right. So, either you go for mode, right, if possible try to have consensus, right, otherwise you can go for mode. You can also take geometric mean. I will tell you in couple of next sessions why you should take geometric mean, right. So, once you are done with data entry, you need to click again submit button, you will get different weights, right. So, this is what we did in HP calculator. We have also seen market and demand analysis and their interrelationship. So, the first thing what you should do is situational analysis, right, a broad picture of the product which you are going to launch, right, because you do not suddenly start doing business, right, you have to prepare a lot, right. So, there is something called situational analysis, right. So, the major points in situational analysis are you need to identify who would be your possible customers, who are your competitors, who are middlemen, right, and other stakeholders also, and you need to identify their requirements. Then go for collection of secondary data. This is a very important step. Secondary data, you will have multiple sources, sometimes you have got government sources, sometimes you have got private sources. So, you need to look at the reliability, trustworthiness and how secondary data are, right, are they updated, who collected that data, what was the sampling method, what was the sample size, what were the important questions, how those questions were analyzed, what statistical tools were used. So, you should look at all those data, all those points carefully in secondary data. Then you go for market survey. In market survey, as I said, it is not always necessary, but if you think that the information which you need from secondary sources if not sufficient, then go for market survey, right. So, in market survey you are going in details, right, and then finally you are characterizing the market and then demand forecasting. So, in next session we will see what are different methods of demand forecasting, because sometimes you have past data with you and many times you do not have any data. Let us say if you are coming up with entirely new product, then you won't have past sales data, right. So, what to do in situation like this, and if you have got past data, what to do with past data. So, there are different forecasting methods and we will see methods like moving average method, exponential moving average method. If time permits, we will go for methods like let us say Holt's model, we will see Winter's model, and we will try to take up couple of questions also and with this let me complete this session. I hope you would have understood whatever I have taught in this session. So, thank you very much.